Okay, well, it's time to move on here. So it's Matthew chapter 8, and I'll just see how far I can get today. Okay, so verse 1. When he had come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Then Jesus put out his hand and touched him, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. Immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, see that you tell no one, but go your way, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded as a testimony to them. Okay, so that's after the Sermon on the Mount. Then this is what happened. And the next few chapters are dealing with all kinds of healings, miracles of different kinds, demons being cast out, things like that. And then comes a small section of parables. So I try to do these in sections, but anyway. Okay, so here, the leper believed, you can do it. It's just if you're willing, and he of course was willing, so the leper was cleansed. And then he worshiped him, and Jesus never said, didn't tell him anything like not to do that. So there's another item there. And then sometimes this comes up, to tell no one kind of thing. And sometimes, there might be a reason for that, but I don't know exactly why. Anyway, here he says to go and show himself and do. They had a customary thing from the Old Testament, like if they got healed, they were supposed to do a certain, like bring an offering, that kind of thing, and as a testimony to the priesthood there, that this happened. So I'm sure they'll be real excited to hear about that in this case. Okay, so anyway, that's what that's about. Now, verse 5. Now, when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, pleading with him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home, paralyzed, dreadfully tormented. And Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to those who followed, assuredly, I say to you, I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel. And I say to you that many will come from east and west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go your way, as you have believed, so let it be done for you. And his servant was healed that same hour. So that really is how it works. I mean, he just has to give the command and it's done. It can be from any distance. So that's how it truly is. But this centurion had the faith to know and see that, and that was remarkable. And Jesus was impressed by that. It says he marveled. So yeah, that's good. And exactly at that time, the servant was healed when Jesus gave the command for him to be healed. So that's what happened here, is another miracle. And then this part, he goes on about the faith, and he does that same comparison, like, you can have maybe Gentiles or whoever, people who have greater faith than descendants, physical descendants of Abraham. So he's making that comparison here and says many will come from east and west, like all over the world, and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So because of unbelief, that's what happens. And so many people, they take it for granted. And there's a saying, they rest on their laurels, and what that was back in the day, they would have little Olympic things and they'd give them a little crown. And they would make these leafy crowns, and laurels were the leaves. So they made little crowns out of these and put them on when they won, And it was like some people, oh, okay, they got this crown, and they would not literally sit on it, but they would rest on that. Like, well, I won, so I'm good to go for the rest of my life, And I've heard of cases of, there's so many examples of this, but, I've heard of cases of this. There was a famous, in another country, okay, that's famous for a certain sport, being really good at that sport, and they really were. And this was maybe, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, they really were the winners, let's just say, on that sport. And they had a lot of fame for that. They had a reputation for they're good at that sport, And I think that's what happened, because then it was sometime in the last decade, not this one, but the last one, they had another sort of a match in that same sport, okay? And I'll never forget this. Like, I saw this on TV where that country, the fans of that team and that sport, and they were famous for winning in that. And they were watching the match, and they had all the colors on of that country. There were like 3 colors, and they were all had their makeup in those colors and the outfits on, and those colors and the whole uniforms, and were so ready to win. They were so sure that country, the team from that country, was going to win. Because after all, they always won. I mean, they were, the rear kickers in that department. They were just on it, all over it, So, yeah. And, they were just already, had assumed and taken for granted that their country team would win. And they lost. They did not win. And it was such a blow. And you could see it like a balloon being deflated. Like their whole demeanors just sank. Their whole shoulders just slumped. They just had that crestfallen look of total, dejection and disappointment and discouragement. They were just heartbroken. I mean, some of them were really actually even crying, like they couldn't believe that they had lost. And I mean, it's just a sport and things change, but maybe it's just a lesson. Like, people, they get so sure of themselves and they're resting in the past. And things happen, time moves on, things change. Maybe they didn't practice enough. Maybe they didn't exercise that skill enough in the meantime, and they just took it for granted. And then that's why this happened. It could be, but there is that resting on your laurels thing, and kind of like this is what they were doing, well, we're sons of Abraham, so they automatically take it for granted they're going to be ushered in that door based on that, and that's not how it works, and he's making that comparison here, and yeah, in this thing there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So this is like the regret, the remorse, oh, if only we would have known. Well, they didn't have an excuse on that, but there's so many people I can imagine one day, oh, if only I would have known that I did need to repent, if only someone had told me, that I did need to, really follow Jesus and all these things. Well, there's going to be a lot of regret. That's all I can say. But anyway, okay, 13. Yeah, we did that. Then he got healed the same hour. Okay. Now, Peter's mother. All right. So now, when Jesus had come into Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother lying sick with a fever. Okay, yeah. Okay, so he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she arose and served them. All right, so this was a little quicker and less dramatic. Okay. Okay, now, 16. When evening had come, they brought to him many who were demon-possessed, and he cast out the spirits with a word, and healed all who were sick, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, He himself took our infirmities and bore our sicknesses. Okay. So this, I could, wait, there's a thing here. Oh, okay, Isaiah 53:4. So, I mean, it applies to this, and, then there's that thing like, it applies like on the cross, but not in a way that, now, what happened is, okay, for the sin, yes, and to restore all things eventually, death and sickness will disappear, and the curse is removed, and the kingdom comes in, and all these things go back to paradise. But that doesn't mean that you're going to be automatically healed physically in your life. If you have a sickness, we don't always get healed, and there's a reason for that. So I did a video on that whole topic, but I just want to say, there's some denominations that claim that physical healing was provided for at the cross, like in the atonement on the cross. And, you could say no, not in that sense, but in a way of totally things being restored, yes, but it doesn't ultimately apply now. It unfolds in different ways over time. So it's still true that you can be a Christian in perfectly good standing and have a sickness and not be healed of it for some particular reason. And that's okay. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. And I did a video explaining all that. So that's in one of the earlier videos. It mentions sickness in the title, so you would find it if you look for it. Okay, now 18. And when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave a command to depart to the other side. Then a certain scribe came and said to him, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So a lot of people take that to mean, he was homeless. Well, he didn't have a home in the sense of a steady home. Okay, so not like we would today. And things were different back then. So he was always moving around. So this could have been like he was camping about or staying with followers, that kind of thing, but didn't have, he had to sleep, but didn't have an actual dwelling place that was permanent, is what I take that to mean. But anyway, that's kind of, how it is when like missionaries have that situation, and you're just following him, and it's okay, you're always okay, So when you follow him, it's okay. Like this works out. Okay. But many wouldn't want to then, see. So he's putting out warnings here. Then another of his disciples said to him, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. But Jesus said to him, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. Now, a lot of people take that as being harsh, you know what I mean? What they meant was not like, okay, my dad just died and I have to bury him tomorrow. And Jesus is like, no, you better come now or else. Okay? That's not what this is. So, what they did back then, they used that term, and it just meant like the dad could have been alive for another 10 or 20 years. It just meant let him die first. And in other words, when I put him to rest and he's buried, then I'll come and follow you, you know. And that wouldn't have been necessary, you know. So Jesus is just saying, like, well, follow me now or not, you know, don't follow me at all then. But, you know, let the dead bury their own dead. If you're more concerned about pleasing your family than being a Christian, then you're not worthy of him, is what this really boils down to. Okay, so that's what that's about. Okay, I know there's a list of these hard sayings of Jesus, so good thing I understand a lot of the background here. So, yeah, okay. Now, when he got into a boat, his disciples followed him, and suddenly a great tempest arose on the sea, so that the boat was covered with the waves. But he was asleep. Then his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we are perishing. But he said to them, why are you fearful, O you of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. So the men marveled, saying, how can this be that even the winds and the sea obey him? You know, I mean, you have to laugh a little. It's so funny. It's like, well, that's no problem. All I have to do is just, you know, command them to be still, and no, it's problem solved. What's the big deal? Why are you so upset? But they didn't know, and that's what happened. And it was an opportunity for more belief. You know, they even marveled that he had command over the elements. So something good came out of that. Okay, now 28. When he had come to the other side, to the country of the Gergesenes, okay, there met him 2 demon-possessed men coming out of the tombs, exceedingly fierce, so that no one could pass that way. And suddenly they cried out, saying, what have we to do with you, Jesus, you Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? So that's interesting, because that's very revealing. I mean, what have we to do with you? Well, they have nothing to do with him because they're demons. And then they call it like it is, Jesus, you Son of God. So the demons knew who he was. Have you come here to torment us before the time? So they knew there was a time coming they would be tormented. See? So they're just trying to do all the damage they can in the meantime before their time has come. And then they're almost taunting him, like, have you come to torment us even earlier, before that time? So, anyway, so 30. Now a good way off from them there was a herd of many swine feeding. So the demons begged him, saying, if you cast us out, permit us to go away into the herd of swine. And he said to them, go. So when they had come out, they went into the herd of swine, and suddenly the whole herd of swine ran violently down the steep place into the sea and perished in the water. So, I mean, he could have just cast them out into the air, but he permitted this, that they went into the swine, okay? And then they were so possessed that this is what they did. The herd of swine ran violently down the steep place into the sea and perished in the water, so they drowned. So this whole herd of swine was gone, perished. 33. Then those who kept them fled, and they went away into the city and told everything, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to depart from their region. Now, isn't that interesting? Instead of being happy that there's someone casting demons out, they ask him to leave. That's very telling. And then I've heard different things about this with the swine, like, they lost money on the herd, and they would lose more, they thought. So that's why they asked him to leave. And then one would wonder why. It's the country of the Gergesenes. So, I mean, it was in Israel. So one would wonder why was there a herd of swine there? They were forbidden to eat pork. So what would you be doing raising a herd of swine? And that is suspect. So maybe that's why he permitted it. I don't know, but the thing with that, now I might as well get into that. Okay, so there were, the kosher rules in the Old Testament. Now, of course, as Christians, we're not obligated to keep that as any kind of salvation issue. But there are scientific health facts behind this, and that's why I actually eat this way. I'm a health food nut, so I want to do all these things. But another thing, and I'll get into this, but back then they didn't have, okay, take swine. Like, the thing with pork and any meat that comes from a pig, basically, okay, it doesn't matter what it is. There are many kinds of meat that come from the pig. You got ham, bacon, whatever, sausage, anything that's pork that comes from the pig. Okay, the reason the meat was considered unclean was because pigs, if let's say you have a herd of pigs, they will eat anything. And I really mean anything, okay? They'll eat like bugs. And there are different animals that are not kosher, like lions and different animals that they literally, now not everything applies to every one of these. I just remember reading the list of this, but like some of them eat vomit. Some of them eat dead animals. Some of them eat their own young. Okay, then you have nasty bugs that are already unclean as it is, cockroaches and nasty bugs. Okay, all kinds. Ugh. And then they'll eat, like, I think even what comes out at the other end. I forgot, but there was a list of nasty stuff they would eat. And and by the way, kosher animals are all vegetarian. So the carnivore animals that are predatory were not kosher. Okay. So if they ate other animals, they were not kosher. Like lions eat other animals, so they're not kosher. And the thing is, animals, when they eat animals, they don't cook the meat, they don't drain the blood, they just sink their teeth right into that animal, blood and all, and raw meat, and devour this animal. So everything that goes into them is yucky, okay? It's unclean, it's nasty in one way or another, and we're forbidden to eat blood. So if an animal eats blood, then, I don't know what happens, but we're not supposed to eat that animal. So it's just, That's why these animals were unclean. And that's what the word means. Like if it's kosher, it's clean. If it's unkosher, it's unclean. So this wasn't just some arbitrary list of rules to be difficult and make life hard and less fun. There's a reason behind everything. There's a scientific reason behind all of this as well. Everything in the Old Testament. Okay, I'll get to the thing, but let me do the fish next. Fish, seafood. Okay. There was seafood that was kosher and there was seafood that was not. And if anybody loves that kind of food, I'm just warning you, okay? Spoiler alert, all right? There's unkosher fish. Okay, so we have shrimp, lobster, crab, oysters, shellfish of different sorts, whatever. All those other things. The basically kosher fish, they have scales and fins. So like salmon is kosher, tilapia is kosher, different, that kind of fish. And you can look at the internet and get a list and see if you want to be sure. There's fish that's unkosher, like swordfish is not kosher. Lots of fish, but just looking at those other fish I mentioned, what is it called? Like it has the shellfish they call it. It's all shallow water fish. And what happens is, take shrimp, okay? In shallow water, there's more bacteria. And the bacteria settles on the bottom, on the seafloor. So like if you're going swimming in the ocean and you walk into the ocean water, the deeper you get, the cleaner it is. And that scummy part is at the right where the wave hits the sand, that with the bubbles and all that, if you've ever done that. But and that sand right below the water where it's just a few inches, that's as shallow as can be. That's where most of the bacteria sits. Okay, now shrimp come along and they are the cleanup crew, the vacuum cleaners of the ocean floor. So they come and they suck up all that bacteria, into their bodies. That's what they eat, okay? And it makes me think of maggots and those kinds of bugs that eat things that are dead, okay? It's this kind of thing. So, and then you have lobsters are actually the spiders of the sea, okay? And then crabs are something like that too. And all of these shellfish type seafood, they have some problem like that. Like they get the bacteria, they're shallow water fish, they eat the dead particles at the bottom of the sea in the shallow water area where there's more of it. That's why they're there. This is the problem with that stuff, okay? I do not want to put that in my body. I'm just grossed out. I'm sure you're grossed out hearing this, and that's why. That's why this stuff was in there, okay? And they didn't know this, but God knew. That's why He put these rules in there for your own healthy well-being benefit. And it's another proof of the Bible being true and the origin being outside of humanity. So that's why I'm sharing this, and if it benefits you in a health way, I'm happy for you, and that's it. Some people are going to get mad, and I ruined their, their culinary itinerary, their lineup or whatever, their whole assembly line of their menu of these kinds of foods. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so there's a reason for these things. That's the point I'm trying to make. But, and then seeds. In the Old Testament, people don't understand this stuff. There's a rule about not mixing seeds. And it talks about plants, planting seeds, and then they don't understand that. You know how sometimes you buy these bags of seeds and they're like mixed wildflowers or something, and Okay, I mean, they're not going to devour each other, but when you plant them and the seeds, I heard this a long time ago already, if they're too close together, they don't grow because there's like some kind of competition thing. And it's different if they're the same type of seed, then it's a different story. But still, you don't want them too close together so they won't grow enough. Like they need their own nutrients from the soil and their own space for water and everything. So anyway, and there are other things about that mixing things that causes problems. So when we get there, you'll see. But there is a reason for it all, and it's even scientifically based, wouldn't you know it? But that's the deal with the pork. Okay, so this was a good spot to stop, park the car, and talk about it, and that's it. So, all right, I think this is already half an hour, so I'm going to do another video for chapter 9. I'll be right back.